Hi everyone, welcome back to What the FinTech, your FinTech Feel Good show. What the FinTech is a news and information platform covering the latest FinTech development in Hong Kong, Singapore, China, and Asia. Join us every week for an engaging conversation with various Asian tech figures to discuss entrepreneurships, emerging technology, customer engagement, and partnership. Before starting this interview, please feel free to share this interview with all your friends, recommend it, and give a 5-star rating on the platform Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcast. And today we have Joey from Artifact Labs. Hey Joey, how are you?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you very much for coming here because we know each other for like maybe a year now
Yeah.
of following what you are doing previously with South China Morning Post and now Artifact. So I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Super excited. I mean, I love your studio, by the way.
Oh,
So
thank you very
props to this
much.
studio.
Thank you very much. Before we start this interview, maybe you can give a quick introduction of who you are, what you have done before, and how you came to create Artifact.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Joey Liu. I am the co-founder of Artifact Labs, which is a Web3 advisory and NFT company that builds blockchain platforms, products, and strategies for institutions who have existing or historical IP. Now, this was a project initially that was incubated by the South China Morning Post, but we are now a standalone independent company. A little bit about myself. I am originally from New York, from the United States. I grew up there. My family is from Taiwan. I started my career here in Asia at McKinsey in consulting. And I also spent some time at Uber based out in Taipei. I returned to New York for my master's degree, thinking that I would then stay for the long term in New York. But life happened. I met a girl. I followed a girl over to Hong Kong, and she's now my wife. So I've been in Hong Kong for almost 6 years now. I moved here in 2017, and I was fortunate enough to join the South China Morning Post under the stewardship of the then CEO Gary Liu. Most recently, I became the chief of staff and the head of strategy at the South China Morning Post. But since 2018, it must have been, we were exploring blockchain technology for media applications. So, long story short, Gary, myself, and another co-founder named Henry, also on the strategy team, we decided to take off our SCMP hats and go headfirst and leave the post and become full-time entrepreneurs and startup founders at Artifact Labs. So that's a little bit about my story.
Wonderful. I really like this story about like coming here for love and now being one of the leader of the Web3 and NFT platforms. What was a big leap of faith for you to quit a stable job, especially a successful one, to go to start this Artifact Labs?
Yeah, I think that turning point really must have happened in late 2020, early 2021. Just personally, I was involved in cryptocurrency, started exploring and dabbling with Bitcoin, with Ethereum. Not too early, I would say probably 2018, 2019. It coincided when we started exploring blockchain technologies at LCMP. Um, when 2021 came around, we saw what was happening with NFTs, and it was the job of the strategy team to make sure that we were on top of the latest developments, understanding any opportunities to innovate. And so it was actually from the strategy team that we first came out with a white paper, an internal white paper for the SMP and our executive team around NFTs and the applications for media. And it became very real. It transformed from a white paper to an actual project. And as we started building it for the South China Morning Post, specifically based off our historical assets, it became so big and so real, and the opportunity was so massive that you know Gary, myself, Henry, and actually several others from SMP, we decided like this is a real opportunity. If we want to move fast, we need to spin off as an independent company, really build out a startup culture, environment, and team, and just be 110% invested in Web3 and NFTs. And so that was kind of the transformational point for myself and for the team.
Ah, really like the way that you process the white paper, how you come with the idea. But when you think about it, so you become like a first project, and after this, you become an independent project. Did you think already about the business model, how you would like to operate, what will be the product you would like to develop?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we need to start from what we were thinking about for the SCMP. Um, the starting point was that NFTs are a transformational technology. That was a thesis that it could provide an opportunity for institutions with historical assets to create a new revenue model. And so what I mean is when we look at the South China Morning Post, it is a 119-year-old institution, global news media company now, with over 30 million monthly active users, but deeply rooted in history. And with over a century of history, we have millions of archival assets. These are photos, microfilm, front pages, of course. But the unfortunate thing is, these millions of assets are just stored and tucked away in our archives. They are absolutely inaccessible to the vast majority of people. Even for the people at S&P, only a very small handful can actually have access to them. And it's stored in our nice production facility up in Taipo, temperature, humidity controlled, etc. So one, it's these assets are arguably the most valuable treasures that S&P has, but they're inaccessible. And secondly, because they are so valuable, there should be a way for SEMP to be able to monetize and create a business model out of it. But unfortunately, at least in today's media landscape, archival assets are heavily underutilized and undermonetized. And so here came NFTs, the ability to have a digital certificate that is matched to an underlying asset, an underlying digital asset, whatever that is. It could be a photo, a video, a music file, a front page. And so here was now a way to make sure that this digital asset can no longer just be a copy and paste, infinitely replicable. There was now a way with NFTs to add intrinsic or create and make sure there was intrinsic value to this digital asset. And so for the SCMP, it became an opportunity to take these underutilized assets and create a revenue model. And that's exactly what we did with SCMP in our first NFT collection.
I remember the first collection with the 1997. At the moment, I really want to buy one, but I think everything was sold out in a couple of hours, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the very first launch for Artifact Labs, it was with the SCMPs, our first client. And the first assets were all of the front pages from the South China Morning Post in 1997. Of course, 1997 is such a monumental year for Hong Kong. It was the year of the handover, and it was also the 25th anniversary. So we had 362 front pages from that year because there were 3 non-publishing days. And we decided to turn them into digital trading cards. Now, depending on the specific date and the historical significance associated with that date, it would have a different rarity. So, of course, July 1st, 1997 is your one of one legendary card. Maybe if it's a January 1st, it's a common, with maybe 50 editions. But what we did was we packaged these into mystery boxes. Each box had 5 NFTs. And so if you purchase a mystery box, you would open it and have a moment of delight and surprise. You wouldn't know what you would get. Of course, we were trying to draw inspiration from the good old days with traditional trading card games. But we were incredibly successful, actually far more successful than we could have imagined. We had about 2,600 mystery boxes, so around 13,000 NFTs, and we sold out all of them within 2 hours of the drop. So there was clearly a community that cared about historical assets, that cared about the SMP, and also cared about preserving history on the blockchain.
So if you have a next one soon, I may be better and just buy the first minutes and not after 2 hours. Do you have any kind of technical or industrial background before starting this kind of product? Because you spoke about the cards, having the legendary common cards. Looks really similar to what you have for sports cards, for example,
Mhm.
football, basketball, or a few others. So did you like work on some of those projects like this before, or maybe some of your teammates work on this kind of NFT project before?
So Henry, my co-founder, he is what you would call a degen in the Web3 crypto language. He was an early adopter of cryptocurrencies. He was also an early believer in NFTs. So when you think about some of the flagship household NFT collections, from your Bored Apes to your Moonbirds, Henry's got them. Myself, I was probably a slightly later to the game, but I also dabbled a lot in exploration of cryptocurrencies and collections of NFTs. And even going back to the good old days, whether it was Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like I'm sure many of us, participated. And so, yeah, we tried to draw a lot of gamification elements to bring into, historical assets that maybe on the surface might sound, not as sexy, but when you actually create that asset, when you actually add utility, when you have that provenance from the issuer, there's a lot of value that can be derived from NFTs.
And coming from, this kind of very traditional industry as a newspaper, coming to the new technology, Web3 NFTs, did you find like some myths you have to, overcome when you speak with your partners or potential customers that you have? Or it was something really easy and you have already, like that kind of a strong reputation and branding will help you to recreate that project?
So I think the key things were really one, recognizing that this space, when we talk about Web3 broadly, when we talk about NFT applications, we're still quite early. And so recognizing that and understanding that there's still so much to learn, so much to experiment, even for ourselves as builders. But then recognizing when we're talking to other companies, other clients, other customers, um, we need to make sure that we can help them better understand why this is so transformative and what it can mean for these customers when it comes to building deeper engagement, when it comes to generating potential new revenue and creating business models. So for Artifact Labs, we really focus our mission on three things. One is the preservation, preserving and connecting history on the blockchain. Two is creating this entirely new historical NFT asset class, right? That is different from your traditional NFTs that you think about today, whether they're bored apes or moonbirds, the digital contemporaneous collectibles. We're focused on historical assets as NFTs, and then thirdly is using these historical assets to create these new sustainable business models for traditional companies who want to now be onboarded into Web3. And so in our conversations with these partners is always making sure that we speak the same language. We try to make them understand the implications of the technology and understand the new consumer behavior changes that are happening for the next generation for Web3.
One of the questions about your product will be how do you develop this one? How the idea came to your mind, especially when you say like the kind of legendary cards or common cards. Did you try to test it internally or maybe with some of the partners? And did you have like some design iteration or do you come back to that design iteration a couple of times?
Yeah. So to answer that, let me first explain um, why NFTs can have value. And then after that, I'll get into our kind of
Sure.
design and creative thinking. For us, when we're creating NFT products, either for SEMP or for other media organizations, other cultural institutions, other companies with IP, there are really four things that define the value of that NFT product. The first one, of course, is just the provenance, right? Who is the original issuer of this NFT? It can be SMP. If we're working with, let's say, the Louvre, the museum, and we create an NFT of the Mona Lisa, maybe the Louvre is that original, issuer, and so the provenance gives the NFT value. Secondly, there is, of course, scarcity. When we create NFT products, of course, something should not be infinitely replicable. You need to define a certain supply. In the case of SCMP, we had 13,000 NFTs. So scarcity by pure, supply and demand will also create value for that NFT. Thirdly, and this is what I actually think is most important, is the utility that is associated with an NFT. Oftentimes, when you think about an NFT, what it does is it serves as a membership pass or a key that gives you access, that gives you potential rewards. It gives you actual real world utility value. And so, in the case of the SEMP, if you were an owner of this 1997 Premium Series NFT, you could get access to SEMP content, SEMP paywall content. You can get access to um, editors in our newsroom that no one else gets access to. You can get access to exclusive SCMP events that are invite only and ticketed. So, and the list goes on and on. Lastly, the fourth criteria is really commercial rights. Some of our partners may decide that the underlying asset that is minted as an NFT, we will give up those commercial rights. So, for example, in the case of SEMP, if we decided to take a historic photograph, we can mint it as an NFT and then say whoever owns this NFT now has the underlying intellectual property and commercial rights to this NFT. And so, depending on how valuable that asset is, it would increase the value of the NFT. So, long story short, those are kind of the four ways we think about value for an NFT.
Okay, 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 interesting. But that's the way that you came with your teams and you develop it.
Yeah.
Did you try to test it with some of the customers before selling it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So because this space is so new, we're always experimenting, but experimentation should be data backed, should be user feedback
Mhm.
oriented. And so what we did, not just for SCMP, but for some of our, actually for all of our upcoming projects that we'll be announcing publicly soon, what we try to do is always have direct conversations with potential users and audiences. And right now, the Web3 channel to do this is really Discord. So we have a Discord channel for the artifact community. Currently, it's about 10,000, so not too small, but still not that
It's pretty
large.
good.
And then these are folks who are really bought into the concept of NFTs, historical assets. And so what we like to do is always talk to them and engage with them to understand what value they care about, what assets mean the most to them. Henry, our co-founder, he leads our ecosystem efforts. Every Thursday, he holds an AMA and Ask Me Anything, where he's on Discord with voice chat, talking directly to whoever wants to join from our community, and it's a very engaging conversation, and it's always a great two-way kind of dialogue to understand what our users and customers care about, and for them to kind of ask us and get a better understanding of what our roadmap is and what we're building.
And that's true in terms of ecosystem. Last time I was really impressed about the event you hold. You bring very valuable people from the different companies and partners that you get
Yeah.
here in Hong Kong to the same room, and it was a great moment to share and meet and mingle with some new people as well, but also with friends.
Yeah, yeah. So we were really excited because we officially spun off from the SCMP several months ago, and we'll actually be making a public announcement about our financing quite soon. So can't divulge too much more information, but be on the lookout for some announcements, both in terms of funding and also some of our strategic partners and clients that we're building with. But it was we wanted to hold an in person event to kind of celebrate the momentum of Artifact Labs, and also, of course, to give back to the folks who have made this possible. And so these were our collector community, folks who have bought into the NFTs that Artifact Labs and our partners have created. And so it was a great showing to see some of these folks in real life. We know them pretty often by their Discord IDs, but them showing up is always great. We had our partners from our you know um, client base and other institutions that we are fortunate enough to work with and have trust be entrusted with their intellectual property. And then, of course, just a broader kind of Web3 friends and family community. And Hong Kong is really, really going to be the future. I believe it'll be the hub of Web3 development and, of course, of NFT applications.
I believe that a lot of people think that as well here, and we can see a lot of excitement from the different companies already based here. One of my questions, because we are speaking about the different Web3 companies right now, is what is the difference between your company and the other startups on the market? What is your added value here?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Our differentiation, our value proposition is that we are really a full stack end to end technology partner. But at the same time, we focus specifically on working with institutions with existing or historical IP. And so this is why we're creating this entire new asset class of historical NFTs. We're not trying to, create the next Moonbird. We're not trying to create the next CryptoPunk or the Bored Ape or anything that is, contemporaneous, creative kind of new digital assets. There is already a massive, world out there, an inaccessible kind of, often under noticed world of historical assets. Look at the SCMP, millions of assets over 100 years old. We're just one of thousands of media organizations. Look at all the museums and cultural institutions out there. For a museum at any given point in time, they probably are only showcasing 5 to 10% of their entire collection. Everything else is kind of just collecting dust. There's so many companies out there which really, recognizable IP. So our goal is really to work with these companies take their existing historical assets and unlock that value through the creation of new NFT products.
Great, great. One of my questions will be like, how do you collaborate with your ecosystem partners, big corporate or brands, when you want to work on some of the project with them?
Yeah. So the way it usually works, um, and it actually does depend because all the clients we talk to, all the corporate companies and partners, they range on their scale of Web3 knowledge, Web3 adoption, kind of just general receptivity to exploring new technologies. And so, step one always starts with education. We try to talk to these companies and different, team members. Oftentimes, they will have like an innovation team or cross-functional working team or technology and product sprint team. We start with education to let them know what exactly these key buzzwords in the industry are, because oftentimes folks will throw out Web3, blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, metaverse, and kind of use them interchangeably, but they actually refer to different things. And so it's just making sure conceptually they understand where this new direction is, and then really spending time with them to share what exactly NFTs and these digital applications can be, understanding what these companies are looking for. What exactly is their primary or secondary goals when it comes to the exploration of new technology, specifically for NFTs, right? Are they looking to oftentimes it's just create short-term marketing, PR, branding buzz? That's totally fine. Or are they looking to create deeper engagement with their customer base or their user base? Or are they looking for new revenue opportunities? So it varies, and then we try to get a better understanding of what these companies are doing. Step two after that is really understanding their target audience, right? They probably have an existing target audience base, but these days, every company is trying to better understand the next generation, Gen Z. All their um, expectations and behaviors are likely different, and they need to cater to this new normal. And so many of these companies are not just looking to engage with their existing audience, but they're also looking to create and target new incremental audiences. And then lastly, which is always this is always the most fun part, is going to these companies and trying to take a look at their historical assets. What are the assets that they have tucked away in their archives? And so oftentimes we'll be talking to the archival teams, and oftentimes they're under noticed, but we spend a lot of time to look through and review all the incredible assets and stories that they have.
I like the idea of working with those archive teams. It's pretty interesting. One of my other question will be, because we are speaking about how your team work with others, but is your teams fully based in Hong Kong, or do you have like teammates also overseas?
We are a distributed workforce, albeit we are still a small and humble startup. We have about 12 team members. The majority of them are here in Hong Kong, but we also have engineers abroad, one notably in Taiwan. But I think that is the future of Web3, a decentralized world. We should be, getting comfortable with, working with global talent, and yeah, that'll be the future.
Is your team mostly a team of developers, or do you have like different departments, like, such as sales, archive, or like specific project teams,
Yeah, yeah.
developers?
We, again, still a small team, but we probably have a third of them focused on the core product technology and engineering. Another third, I guess you could say, is focused more on business development, account management, the creative design side. And then maybe another third, you can kind of say, pretty much is just Gary, myself, and Henry wearing a bunch of different hats and doing a little bit of everything.
I'm sure about it. What kind of culture does exist in your company right now?
That's a great question. We honestly care a lot about culture, and actually, this originates from the SEMP days where we really invested in creating a culture that was really inclusive and really resonated with our staff members, and also really resonated with the mission and vision of the company. And it's interesting you bring this up because maybe 2 weeks ago, the Artifact Labs team had its offsite. It was actually right after our launch party. We had 2-day offsite where we really spent a lot of time together on team building, on strategic planning for the next fiscal year. And one of the topics was culture. And we actually have defined three values for the Artifact Labs team. The first one is learn it, own it, do it. The second one is trusted together. And then the third one is create joy. So, first one is fairly self-explanatory. We are a team of talented folks, and we really try to empower one another. You know, the space is constantly evolving, so everyone should always be learning every day. But we also want folks to feel empowered to own things, and then to just go on and do it and execute it. Number two, around trusted together. This is purposely called trusted together because it can be interpreted in two different ways. Firstly, when we look at the Web3 space today, um, no, it's a little bit better now, but there have been so many scams and hacks and really, um, you know, a lot of folks out there aren't really trying to do better for the world, right? They're kind of here for short term gains. And so we want to, of course, position ourselves as trusted advisors and partners. We firmly believe in the technological innovation and transformative powers that Web3, blockchain technology, NFT applications have. And so we really want to be that trusted partner to everyone we work with. And then internally, we trust a lot in each other, right? We trust in each other to, do the right thing, get the work done, do good, and so that's kind of the trusted culture that we're creating. And then lastly, creating joy. At the end of the day, when we work with these partners and clients, and we look at their assets, the end user is still the individual like you and me. And so we want to make sure that we're creating products that are, really joyful, that make folks happy and make individuals feel empowered with the utility that they can derive from these products.
So you spoke about your offsite. So most of the time, offsite is also for strategy and what's next for the company. Where do you see the company evolving for the next year or maybe next 5 years right now?
Yeah. This is what we envision. Who knows where the next couple of years will take us? But at least in this first year, we'll be funded. We'll have a couple of strategic partners. This first year is really about growth and acceleration. We will be significantly ramping up our team through hiring. And also, we will be working with quite a number of incredible IP. So, again, I can't say if I'm really excited. Over the next couple of weeks and months, we will be announcing these big names, and we will just be onboarding new projects, new IP, and creating a bunch of incredible NFT products. So that is kind of the very first year goal that we have. Now, longer term, because we focus on historical assets, one of the innovations that Artifact Labs actually has is something called the Artifact Metadata Standard. And so, what I mean by that is when you look at an NFT today and you try to understand what that asset is, oftentimes the metadata is very limited. It tells you the name of that asset, tells you the different rarity levels, it tells you who was the original source, and tells you who owns it. But when it comes to a historical asset, there's so much more. A lot of the value that is derived from a historical asset is its provenance. It is the who, what, where, when, why, all of that context surrounding this historical piece of information or content. And so we've actually spent an incredible amount of time working with experts. We actually have a council of experts, which includes notable folks in both Web 2 and Web 3 industries. Yatsu from Animoca. We have the APAC CEO of Christie's. We have multiple folks who have deep understanding of what it means to catalog, what it means to understand and work with historical assets. So, long story short, we've created this V1 metadata standard. And the idea is that every artifact, every historical NFT will be embedded with that metadata that tells the full overarching story of that asset. So, longer term, as we have more and more historical assets all tied together by the artifact metadata standard, we can create a marketplace. We can create a discovery platform where in the near future, where folks care a lot about digital collectibles, they will now be able to see one asset, whether it's the S&P 1997 front page or whatever else, and be able to connect it with each other. And so perhaps you can say for the first time, we will have a full historiograph, minted on the blockchain that has all historical assets immutably connected with one another. So that is, a longer term, I would
It-
say midterm vision.
It's easy to picture in my mind. Do you see like the trend right now for the Web3 project or NFT project going your way, or do you see different trends, especially here in Asia?
Yeah, that's a good question. When it comes to trends in Web3, no one can predict it, right? We saw what happened, recently with crypto, with FTX. I think it was just announced this morning that SBF is, finally arrested in the Bahamas. But I would say overall, yes, right now we are in a period of crypto winter, and with that, there is softer demand and also supply for NFT products. But at the end of the day, if you look at some of the figures, if I recall this correctly, for the Ethereum blockchain, last 30 days there was still about 400 million US dollars in trading volume for NFTs. And then if you look at Solana, which should be the second largest NFT market and blockchain, that was around 60 million US dollars. So even though that we are in a significant crypto winter right now, the trading volume is still there. There are still massive user bases of individuals who own crypto wallets, who are owning cryptocurrencies and who are owning and trading NFT assets. And so I think this is just a blip, this crypto winter, and that longer term, the trend will be more and more users will be much more accustomed to this world of owning wallets, of being operating in a more decentralized manner, and NFTs definitely have a core place there.
What do you think is for someone who want to maybe join your company or work on this field, an indispensable skills that they need to have, or something who can help them to be how can I say that, above the competition, to find a job or to maybe work with you?
Honestly, if there was just one core trader value, it would really be curiosity. Um, Someone who is curious, humble enough to know that there's no way he or she can know everything. Someone who recognizes that we are early in this space and that there's just so much to learn, so much to constantly explore and experiment. And as long as you have that innate curiosity to understand what are the latest developments happening here in Asia, in the US, in Silicon Valley, or wherever, reading white papers left and right, being active in Discord and Twitter just to understand what the latest conversations in this, the Web3 sphere is about. Yeah, just always making sure to be curious and constantly be learning. I think that would be the core thing.
And do you think the competition is really like important right now between your kind of companies and traditional company who try to hire tech talents or people who can understand Web3?
I actually do think there is competition, specifically when it comes to product and engineering talent. Um, Front end engineers, back end engineers, even more so blockchain engineers. These are very short in supply, but very high in demand. And so, if there are folks out there, interested in engineering, specifically blockchain engineering, whether it's understanding Solidity for Ethereum or Cadence or Rust or whatever, you are super high in demand. And of course, Artifact Labs is interested in talking to you.
How is it going to reach out to you? By email, by what, by LinkedIn, by the website?
Yeah, please come to artifactlabs.com. There you will see the emails to contact us. Of course, you can always hit me up individually. It's joey at artifactlabs.com. But we also have a Discord community. So join our Discord. We are also quite active on LinkedIn. So do follow our LinkedIn page where we're always producing a lot of thought leadership content. And we're also on Twitter. So yeah, these are some of the places you can come find us.
Very cool. We are almost at the end of this interview. I still have a lot of questions I would like to ask you, but I don't want to take like too much of your time. um, is there any podcast or blog you are following, especially on your Web3 activities or NFTs, that you would like to recommend to anyone?
That is a great question. Of course, What the FinTech is a fantastic
Thank you
podcast.
very much.
In addition to What the FinTech, please to check out a podcast called Web3 and Whiskey.
Okay.
So this is actually a podcast that is hosted by Gary Liu, the former CEO of SCMP, of course, now the founder and CEO of Artifact Labs. Co-hosted with him alongside Suresh Balaji, who is the CMO for Standard Chartered and also the founder of the Web3 Marketers Association. And then also with Malcolm Ong, who is a serial entrepreneur, technical co-founder. So the three of them have this Web3 and Whiskey podcast where they talk all about the latest and greatest in this world.
Is it a weekly podcast or is it like a bi-weekly podcast?
Yeah, it's probably weekly or bi-weekly.
Okay, I will check out and I will share the link with everyone here.
Fantastic.
Is there any piece of advice you would like to share with everyone, or maybe a big takeaway that you like everyone to remember about this interview?
I think the biggest takeaway is one, if you have heard of NFTs, but don't fully understand what it is. Hopefully now you have a better understanding. Note that NFTs don't simply just equate with a photo of a bored ape. The NFT in itself is a digital certificate that can be attached to any digital underlying asset. And because of that, digital assets now have intrinsic value. And because of the utility that can be associated with an NFT, there is a lot of value that can be derived. So hopefully, folks will be stronger believers of NFT applications.
And where can people learn more about you as a person? Do you have a blog? Do you have anything like you would like to share with everyone here?
I'm a little bit more low key, but the best way is to just add me on LinkedIn.
Definitely the best way to reach out to people for professional matters. It's almost the end of this year. We are really close to 2023. It is anything we can wish you for success for next year?
Of course, good health is always great, but hopefully the broader crypto market will recover and we will enter a bull cycle.
Well, yeah, definitely. Will be interesting, this one. Thank you very much for coming, Jory. I really enjoyed this interview. It was great. You share a lot of really valuable insight. I have a lot of fun here.
Thank you so much, Medhy.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for listening or watching this video. I hope like you really appreciate this interview. Feel free to share it with your friends. Please thumbs up, share, comment, like, everything to help us to reach out to more people and invite people like Joey today. Thank you very much. See you soon.